Hello everyone, welcome to another FPL BlackBox. My name is Az. No Mark again tonight, he will be back at some point in the next few weeks, but I am joined by an absolute legend of the game. It is a former winner of FPL in the 2014-15 season. It's Simon March. How are you, Simon?
I'm well, thanks, Az. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Yeah, not too bad at all. I'm ahead of you in the ranks for the first time.
The only young boys worth watching tonight.
I don't feel young anymore, I tell you. But this winter's really taken it out of me. I feel like I'm aging kind of every day. But it's great to see you for your first appearance on BlackBox. You've kind of gone a bit quiet on the video front these, haven't you? You used to do some stuff for Scout, but I haven't seen you on too much lately.
Yeah. I go on every now and again, but then I make such a fool of myself that they don't invite me back on until everyone's forgotten. So.
The trouble is, you set the bar so high when you won it. I've got to say though, like genuinely, of everyone that kind of out there, all the different people doing content and stuff, I don't want to inflate your ego too much, but I've admired the way that you won it, and you won it from a position of being into the game anyway and having a couple of top 10k finishes, and then you've managed to stay kind of on it as well since. I mean, we won't talk about last season. Last season was a bit of a blip, wasn't it? Don't mention that. But the seasons before, you've done pretty well.
Yeah, I've had a few top 10k finishes, not too bad. That's why I've been playing since I think 2009. Back when it was like about 5 of us, and now it's 8 million. So it's getting more tricky now, but. It's.
How do you?
You're ahead of me. Were you saying?
Well, I am this season. Yeah, I'm 21k. Little red arrow for me. You're up to 170, so you had a green arrow. But yeah, I mean, we both got relegated from Generals League, didn't we, last year? Elite 64.
I was season before. I think I came 3rd or 4th in the Elite 64, and the season after I got relegated. So there you go, full on Leicester.
It's a brutal league. Well, you're an honorary member of the Great and the Good League for one episode only, because Greyhead has kindly added you to it. Before we get into that, let's take a look at, well, if you can, we've got two game weeks to cover, but we'll kind of focus more on last week because it was the most recent. 53 points. Do you want to just, well, I'll go for your team. I've got it on the screen. You had Ramsdale in goal, Reguilon with his 0 points and minor injury. Trent with 9, Cancelo with 2, Livramento with 2. Rafinha 5, Gallagher 2, Son, you're a Son owner 13, Salah 12, Antonio 5, and you've hung on to Jamie Vardy for 1 point. So 53 points. Green arrow, happy?
Yeah, by usual standards, 53 points would be pretty bad, but in this week it seemed to be a pretty good score considering. Not many players actually delivered. Son was the obvious one. Son was one of those. If I was braver, I would. But it's just too scary at the moment with Salah getting 200% effective finisher. And apart from Alexander Arnold, Antonio, Rafinha, I think got an assist as well. A couple of them came through. It's been a weird one. I mean, 170,000 isn't exactly sort of something that you would, that I'm particularly proud of. But considering where I was, I wildcarded in game week 7, and I was about 1 million and something then. So managed to kind of claw up about 900,000 places since then, and so it feels like a positive thing. It feels like progress. It's quite funny though, because I see some people like Andy from Let's Talk FPL. I think he was about 10k around about the same time, and him and I are basically the same rank at the moment. But for me, I feel really positive about it because I was 1 million, and he feels really negative about it because he was 10,000. So it all just goes to show it's all relative.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I'm around 20k and I've had a red arrow, and I feel like, a red arrow, I was in the top 10k and now I'm down to 20. But if I'd been 100k and I'd gone up to 20k, I'd be absolutely ecstatic. It's funny how your kind of mindset changes based on the colour of the arrow. There's a few people in the chat just saying your mic is a bit low. I think I fixed it. So this is difference between Mark and I. I have tweaked your settings on Clean Feed, and I think I've given you full repair, Simon, because you had a bit of static noise, and I've upped your volume. So There you go.
Yeah, nice.
Hopefully everyone's happy with that.
Were you in the AV club at school?
I wasn't. No, I'm self-taught with all this streaming and audio stuff. I am a complete nerd, but never quite into the audiovisual side. Talk about my team. So I've got 47 points, so a bit lower than you. I kind of feel like I escaped a bit. I didn't have Son. I didn't have Bernardo Silva. Similar team to yours, really. Ramsdale, Cancelo, Trent, James, Livramento, Rafinha, Salah, Jota. Mbommo came off the bench, finally got me some points. Antonio came off the bench and got me some points. They were, two of my highest scoring players, and they came on. And Kane, oh my word, Kane with a 2-pointer against Norwich. We've got some interesting stats on Kane in this episode, but what do you make of Kane? Because have you ever, in all your years of playing FPL, have you ever seen a player drop off like Kane has?
I'm trying to think. Not really. Maybe Sanchez. I think he went from being absolutely incredible to being really poor and never really recovering.
He stopped playing. He wasn't in the team for a lot of it though. Kane is 90-minute man every week and still getting 2-pointers.
Yeah. You do get these players who sometimes they go from being absolutely world class form to following. Like I remember Hazard about 2015-16. He was one who went from looking like he was absolutely essential the season before to being really poor. But there were sort of managerial issues and all sorts of things off the pitch. And it'd be hard to argue that that's not at least partly the case with Kane. But he didn't look brilliant for England either in the Euros.
No.
So I do really wonder with him, and I kind of feel a bit for the people who got him. Obviously, I got Son, and it wasn't really a 50-50. I do think that Kane is a bit overpriced, but another time with those fixtures, he could absolutely bang. And the people who are sort of suffering now, when you look at their teams, the only thing they've really done is got Kane in, and that investment has kind of pushed. Yeah. Budget from elsewhere, and that's really the only thing that's causing the decline for a lot of people. So it's really unfortunate because on paper it should have been a good move.
Well, check this out. I mean, I've done it in an even worse way because I had Vardy and I sold him before that Chelsea game and he blanks, and I got in Ronaldo against Watford, captained him, he blanked as well, and then I sold Ronaldo the week after and Vardy hauled. And then Kane got nothing. Kane blanked against Burnley because he didn't play. And then Ronaldo hauls against Arsenal, and I've got Kane. And then finally I get Kane to play against Norwich, and he blanks. So I've hokey-cokey these premium striker spot 3 weeks in a row and made a complete mess of it because I could have got Vardy's 13 and then Ronaldo's. It's been a nightmare.
It has. It's been like that all season, really, hasn't it? It's been that kind of thing with the premium forwards. We've either had Ronaldo or we've had Lukaku, or some of us have had Kane. Sometimes Vardy. None of them we seem to get at the right time. It's been pretty challenging season for the strikers. I mean, the thing is, at the moment, I wouldn't have Vardy. I did have him for his brace, but I wouldn't have him if there was anyone else worth having up front at the moment. But there just isn't. There's just an absolute dearth of talent.
Well, there is a new name at the top of the forwards table over the last 4 for expected goal involvement. You won't believe who it is when I show you, but I'm going to save that as a bit of bait for anyone else watching. But it's pretty crazy. But let's see if I can talk you into him. I somehow doubt I'll be able to. Mark's week, 53 points, are the same as you. Really interesting, Mark went 5 at the back. He swapped out Livramento, bought in Reguilon. Has cursed Reguilon with an injury, and like he's doing with most of his players now. Right. Greater in goal, James Alonso, Cancelo, Trent, Reguilon. So, I mean, now that is big at the back. That is about as big as the back as you can possibly get. Jota, Salah, Son, Gundogan. I bet he wishes he went for Bernardo Silva. Sorry, Mark. And then Antonio up front. And Mbommo on his bench. I didn't even get his Mbommo points after all these weeks of holding on to him. Ryan says it's Josh King. It's not Josh King who's top of the forwards list. It will all be revealed in a bit. But yeah, I think Mark's probably fairly happy with that, with 53. But obviously, same as you, decisions to make now. Son and Reguilon, we don't know the full story of what's going on, but Conte's confirmed there's been this COVID outbreak. So it looks very likely that game is going to be postponed against Brighton, or at least all the rumours are that Son's got it and he's going to be out. We're not sure about Reguilon, so yeah, we'll come to what you're doing with the Spurs players later. But yeah, Mark's got some decisions to make. Only one transfer: Tony, Reguilon, Son, Alonso, Adal. He's definitely got some definitely got some issues. Great in the good league. So I've been usurped by FPL General, who's gone top. He's up to 21k. I think he's about 1 point ahead of me, isn't he? Yeah, he's 1 point ahead of me. Typical. Look at this though. Every single person in the Great and the Good League, Captain Salah this week. The scores range from sort of 39 to 57, so not huge amounts of variance between the scores. It was a bad week for most of us. I mean, there's about 4 green arrows, and then you with a green arrow as well, up 23k. What I noticed about your you'd be, where would you be? You'd be ahead of Mark. You'd be ahead of Let's Talk. So you'd be about 5th from bottom. not too bad. But no hits. No hits for your season. Is that strategy?
It is sort of, yeah. So I've never been very big on hits. I'm not good at taking hits. Probably the weakest part of my game. I think captaincy and hits are the things that I most frequently get wrong in FPL. And so I try and avoid it wherever possible. Not to toot my own horn, but when I won it, I didn't take any hits the whole season. Yeah,
no hits all season when you won it, really.
Yeah. So the thing is I think that sounds more impressive than it actually is, because if you're doing well, it tends to mean that you've got good players anyway, right? So a lot of the time it was difficult to find anything to do with transfers, during that time. Because, as fortune had it, I was already on the players that other people were transferring in. So it kind of helps if you're in front. I think if you go behind, it can turn into a bit of a sort of points hit death spiral very quickly, which sort of happened to me a bit last season. So I've been very careful to try and avoid it this season. And I don't know if you saw my articles early on Scout about a sort of checklist system that I was applying, which is quite appropriate actually for BlackBox, because it was
Mark had one last year. I don't think he's sticking to it this year, which is probably why he's doing so badly.
Well, the system is drawn from air cabins and safety measures for before that pilots do before takeoff. So I thought, well, I'll try and apply that to FPL this season, and that I think has actually helped quite a lot. I mean, when I wrote the articles, the people who actually made it through both of them, because it's in 2 parts, the response was very much like, he's not gonna keep doing that. He's not going to do that all season. But actually, since I've been doing that, that's coincided with my season turning around a bit.
Well, you're in good company, because Magnus Carlsen has taken no hits, Fabio Borges has taken no hits, and you've taken no hits. I've just taken the -4, which did pay off actually. That was when I got Ronaldo in for that Newcastle game. I'm also trying to make a conscious effort to take less hits, but then they're Moorish, aren't they? That's the problem. You start taking them and you just can't stop yourself, because you start, I could get this player if I just take it, or I get this player, but I'm trying to be a bit more patient.
Well, my standard for taking a hit right now would be very high, because I've gone this far without taking one. Yeah. But as soon as I take one, then that bar gets lower very quickly, and so
But you've got a hit death pool. Hit whatever it was. Your screen's flickering a bit. I don't know if you can do anything webcam wise.
Let me.
While you're doing that, I'll just talk through some of the other names. Yeah, so Mark's second to bottom. Yavers is below me. I mean, Yavers is having an awful season. Down to 268,000. Another red arrow for him. 65k red arrow, which was the biggest in the Great and the Good League. Really struggling. Fabio's climbing. He's up into 100k now. He had a 30k rise, up to 87,500. And Magnus is up to 44k as well. I mean, Magnus just keeps doing well, doesn't he? It's pretty amazing that this chess god is actually half decent FPL as well. But yeah, don't worry too much if you can't fix the flicker.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything I can do about it.
Just a bit of epilepsy for people that's watching. It's fine. In terms of team value, I think I'm top with 105.2. That's where the real battle is. That's all I care about is team value. You're at 103.5, so some way off. I think you're one of the lower ones in terms of team value. Are you, as well as not taking hits, you making an effort to do less early transfers as well then? Or is that just...
I thought I was doing really well in terms of transfers. What is yours again? What's your team value?
105.2. Which is pretty much all to do with going for Smith Rowe. I got Smith Rowe at like 5.3, so he's up to about 0.8. I think he's up to now.
Well, a ton of mine came, about 3 million of that came since game week 7, since I wildcarded. So I guess whatever I was doing before then wasn't so great. I have been leaving it quite late to make transfers. So, I haven't been optimizing it on that basis, but I was definitely trying to stay patient with a few underperformers, like Harvey Barnes, for example, early on in the season. I think, I lost like maybe 0.2 or 0.3 off him alone. So, but very, very much leaving it late. I think that was another problem that I encountered last season, was trying to be quite aggressive with it and chase price rises and things like that. Whereas it was absolutely the worst season possibly to do that. Yeah. And I think that this season, or at least this winter period, is beginning to.
We're heading into it again, aren't we? Like this Spurs news. I mean, I know the temptation is to move early, especially when you got players like Bernardo Silva's gone up 0.2, for example. You've got players falling, dropping. Price rises this week have been particularly crazy. There's been loads, and these are popular guys. Dennis has gone up. King's probably going up tonight. Ronaldo's gone up. Kane's dropped. It's absolute carnage, but it just shows the value of kind of waiting to kind of to when you move as much as you can. I mean, I've been taking sort of calculated early price rise when there's Champions League games and cup games. It's just a complete no go. But if there's not and the player's going to go up 0.2, then I might have moved. But yeah, my team value's definitely been inflated by Smith Rowe being my team. Right, let's talk some stats then. So everyone will be happy to know that I've added the ticker ratings back in. We're going to look at team data first. I left them out last week because I was really lazy and because they take a while to do, and got absolutely flamed. Everyone was like, what have you done? Where's Mark? Where's the tickers? So they're back in. So let's go through some of these. So season data, there's been some change. Spurs are up to 11th, so their kind of improvement is quite palpable now. According to the ticker, they've had the best fixtures for the defence since the start of the season. So the scout ticker takes into account home games and opposition stuff. We're nearing the halfway point, so obviously most teams would have played each other by now. But Spurs, in theory, have had the best sort of defensive fixtures, and they're sort of mid-table. It's quite an increase to where they were a few weeks ago. Bottom of the season data is Watford. They've had the fourth best defensive fixtures since the start of the season. Not really too many surprises there. Burnley, second to bottom. They're the second best fixtures. Are you surprised with Burnley? I was surprised to see Burnley like so low. We see them as this like well-drilled, defensive unit, and they're conceding an XG non-pen every 56.9 minutes, which is the second worst to Watford, with the second best fixtures as well.
Yeah, usually, they're pretty strong, but I think that a lot of that tends to come around this period and in the second half of the season. I have this, I don't know if there's any Burnley fans who can confirm this or not, but I have this feeling that they often start the season off not brilliant in defence and they just kind of pull it together as the season progresses.
Yeah,
so, maybe we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, I think it was last season, wasn't it, when they went into like Barcelona mode the second half of the season, started actually being really attacking, creative, and things. I was surprised to see Burnley so far down. I mean, then it's Newcastle. Newcastle third from bottom. They're ranked 20th on the fixture ticker, so they've had the hardest first half of the season out of all the teams. So it's probably not too surprising. And then Norwich. So it's all the kind of bottom teams around there. Some of the more surprising teams: Wolves in 6th, the 19th sort of hardest defensive fixtures. A expected goal conceded on penalty every 88.8 minutes. They've been really impressive. Conceding it late to Liverpool was a bit of a blow. They've kept clean sheets before that. Sarr's been amazing for all the people that had him. And Brighton in 5th, 17th on the ticker, 89.3. So, Brighton, we don't concede many chances, but it seems like teams manage to find a way to get past us, as they normally do. Looking at the last 4, though, we've got some really interesting stuff here. Look at Norwich. Norwich, a third for expected goals conceded, non-pen, every 117.3 minutes. That's better than Chelsea, 115. They're the second best fixtures, defensive-wise, over this run. But, I'm looking at... I've already bought in Ronaldo, and I'm looking maybe to captain him. But it just shows Dean Smith has had a pretty big impact on them.
That really is a surprise, isn't it? Norwich. Because they are probably top of the list of teams that you would target. Then perhaps Newcastle. Everything else seems to be
Man City, Liverpool, Norwich, Chelsea.
Yeah.
What are they doing there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because I mean, there are a few like Williams, for example, is a bit of a bargain in Norwich now. Then, if they do, become more defensively solid, they've got. I don't think they've got the best fixtures. So I can't see many people looking to start them. But
No.
as an enabler, he's maybe somebody worth looking at.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm not going to be here sitting here recommending any Norwich defensive assets anytime soon, but it does make me just question whether, when it comes to the whipping boys, you're looking down the bottom of the list. I mean, Leicester are rock bottom of this list. They're conceding an XG non-pen every 45.7 minutes. They're conceding a big chance every 22.5 minutes, which is the worst in the league. 10th best defensive, so we've got mid-table for fixtures. The fixtures have been okay. Like they shouldn't be where they are, and they've been a good, well-drilled Rodgers team for the last couple of seasons, but they're really, really struggling this year. Watford are 19th. They've had the worst fixtures of all teams, so probably not too surprising. But people going into this game with like Mbomo's being sold by loads, but Watford have been really, really poor defensively. Everton right down there as well. Probably a team that we wouldn't have thought at the start of the season would be struggling so much. And then you've got all the normal ones: Brentford, Leeds, Newcastle. What's interesting with Brentford, Leeds and Newcastle, though, is that they've had some of the best fixtures. So Newcastle, for example, over the last 4 have had the best fixtures defensively, but they're 15th in terms of expected goal conceded. So it just goes to show that Howe isn't really tightening him up at all. He is going for this more kind of attacking approach. And we saw the lineup, right? I mean, there's no defensive-minded players in the front line at all, or in midfield.
Yeah, I think I always wonder with those teams further down the bottom, because a good team to face for Chelsea or a Man City or whatever is not necessarily even a good team for Newcastle to face, because they're probably going to be in a relegation fight with those teams. They probably look at Newcastle and think, well, maybe we can get a result here, and so I think you have to sort of vary how you determine, how you classify a good and a bad team to face, depending on where you are in the league, because say, I don't know, Brentford will play very differently against Newcastle than they would against Man City, for example. So,
but I guess it's when you look at like Chelsea, for example. I mean, Chelsea have had tough fixtures, but they're 4th on the list over the last 4 for these defensive numbers. So I think Mark and I kind of showed this last season, was that actually the top teams, the fixtures are less relevant for them when it comes to these defensive numbers, more so for the attack than the defence. But I think when you look at some of the lower teams like Newcastle, Leeds and Brentford, I think they're going into these games thinking they can get a win. I mean, Leeds, for example, 3rd on the ticker, but 16th in terms of expected goals conceded non-pen. And it's going to get even worse for them. Phillips is out now. Bamford's out. They're going back to this kind of bare bones squad. I'm looking at, and Brentford as well. I mean, 5th best on the ticker, but 17th on the list. Like, these are the teams I want my captain or whoever, all my players to be playing. Newcastle, Leeds, Brentford. These are attacking teams who've had good fixtures and are really failing to do the business like defensively.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think over the Christmas period, all bets are off a little bit, because we'll get some really weird results. Teams that you wouldn't expect to concede a lot of goals will, have those matches where, they concede 3 or whatever. But I think going into the new year, I think the teams that you tend to expect to do well defensively end up doing well, and so I would think that it's still likely to be the Man Cities, the Chelseas, the Liverpools that are top of that level. I'm quite surprised that Arsenal are low down there, because they're a team that I assume were actually quite solid defensively. They had last season, I think they had the 2nd or 3rd fewest chances conceded. And they were another one. They're a little bit like Crystal Palace are this season, where they'd concede 1 goal, and that would be it. But overall, they were quite solid in defence. But I suppose Ramsdale has been doing wonders for them this season.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal were 19th on the ticker over the last 4, but 14th on the list. So they've had a really tough run of games. We're going to talk about Ramsdale in a bit. He's doing well considering the amount of chances Arsenal were conceding. But in terms of the season, you're right. I mean, Arsenal 15th. overall. Creating an XG conceded on pen every 60.4 minutes, which is in keeping with like Leeds, Norwich, Newcastle. Like it's, they're not in good company. You look at Man City and Chelsea. I mean, Man City over the season, they're conceding an XG non-pen every 153 minutes, which puts them at the top, obviously. Chelsea 101.2 in second. So every 50 minutes is the difference between City and Chelsea. Teams just can't create chances against them at all. I mean, minutes per big chance conceded for Man City over the season, 112 minutes. They're basically not conceding a big chance in a game. Every other team is conceding a big chance within 90 minutes. City are just defensively crazy numbers this season.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's probably not even that their defence is that amazing. It's probably the amount of possession that they get.
They just can't get the ball of them. Can't create chances. We don't have the ball. Yeah, and you probably wouldn't even try, to be honest, that much against Man City, would you? You would probably park the bus as much as you could, And there's probably about 2 or 3 teams maybe in the league that would bother trying to give City a game. I know. Brighton being one of them. We tried. Didn't go well, but we tried.
Well, they've lost 2 games, haven't they? So it is possible, but it's just not very probable. It seems.
Absolutely. Let's look at some attacks then. So over the season, Liverpool flying high at the top, creating an XG non-pen every 36.4 minutes, which is the league's best. City in second, not bad. Best defence and second best attack, 43.7. And then Chelsea, 56.7. And then West Ham, look at that, 66.6. But we're going to talk about West Ham in a little bit because things have massively gone wrong for them over the last 4 in terms of their attacking numbers. Interestingly, West Ham on the ticker to this point in the season are ranked 4th, and they're 4th on the list. Chelsea, City and Liverpool, 12th, 13th and 15th. So West Ham are the kind of anomaly in the sense that they've had really good fixtures, which probably explains why they're so high up. Actually, I'll talk about West Ham now. Flip over to the last 4. West Ham have been bottom on the ticker, 20th, and they're second from bottom on the attacking data with a XG non-pen every 137.4 minutes compared to 66.6. So it seems that for West Ham, the fixtures are everything in terms of creating these chances, and now they're about to go on a really good run. So yeah, what are you thinking with West Ham? You've got Antonio, right? Are you investing in more, going for a Bowen or
I've got Antonio. He's one who, again, if there was anybody else worth getting, he probably would have gone by now, or if I didn't have bigger problems elsewhere. But I could see him coming back into it. I mean, I'm not looking to get rid ahead of this run of fixtures. I am looking at Bowen now that I likely need a replacement for Son. I think that he's offering real value. I mean, obviously he's pretty low priced. He seems to be delivering quite consistently, but he's got that that benefit of being on some set pieces. Sometimes he's out of position, but even when he's not, he's still getting points. It's interesting because I always wonder with West Ham because of all the teams. They seem to be that team where at least once a season you get a player who goes on a run of about 6 games and they get returns in all those 6 games. So everybody brings them in, and then you never hear them again for the rest of the season. I mean, Jesse Lingard is an example of that. But even this season, Ben Rama have had Lanzini in the past. I think even Chiati has had his moments. Stuart Downing, all these. It's always West Ham, and so I'm always very wary. I think of getting them in on the back of a good run of performances, because I sort of wonder whether that's how long that's going to last for. But going into this run of fixtures, and given his price, he seems like a bit of a no-brainer.
Well, one player we haven't seen anything of really is Souček. Last season he was such a good option for people coming off people's bench. I think it was like 5 million, getting goals all the time. And now it looks like his role is just completely different in the side. He's nowhere near on any list of XG. No one's considering him. Everyone's going for these more flair attacking players. But yeah, I think going by the last 4, West Ham are not offering anything in attack. And we're going to talk about Antonio in a bit more detail because he is doing really, really badly. That's a spoiler. So it's going to have to be quite a big upturn in their attacking data to kind of justify bringing in multiple assets of theirs. 18th on the list over the last 4 is Brentford. second best fixtures over the last 4, and they're 18th. Really disappointing for all those people who've got, well, like me, Tony, and Mbommo. And obviously, then Tony gets COVID, and it's Brentford have just been an absolute nightmare. Such a positive start for them. That game against Liverpool, they looked like they could score 4 or 5 goals against anyone. They played Chelsea, didn't they? And played so well against Chelsea, lost that game. But yeah, I'm holding on to Mbommo for one more week, but I think that's probably me done with him. Have you still got Tony?
No, I've never had
Never
Tony,
had Tony.
actually. No, there's been a couple of times where I've looked at it and regretted it, and penciled him in as he would be my next transfer, and then just ended up doing something else instead. But I don't know. There is something. I think you can put too much credence in the early season form of a promoted team, and doubling up on them. I mean, on paper, it made total sense because you look at their fixtures and they were just fantastic, and they're both Mbommo and Tony both priced really, really well. So not too much of a risk, but it hasn't really paid off, and I'm always kind of wary, I think, of those things, because it's not just their ability as individuals. It's whether they're going to get the chances created for them, and whether the team is going to go into fixtures even trying to create chances for them, or whether they're going to prioritise, keeping a clean sheet. And
it's almost like I think I might have heard a commentator say, but I think it's almost like they kind of feel they've got their points now, and if they can just grind out a couple more draws and just get a couple more wins on the board, they're going to be safe and be fine. Yeah, it seems a weird way of looking at it, but I do wonder if the foot has come off the gas because maybe they think they're safe already.
Well, it could be. It could be, and if it is that, then it's a really good strategy, because if you look at when you're more likely to get results against teams that are better than you man for man, then it's going to be early on in the season. It's going to be during these periods where there's a lot of fixture congestion for the top teams with European football and things like that. So it makes a lot of sense to really go for it. And actually, when you look at the teams that have stayed up, it tends to be those teams that had really good first half.
Do you remember Hull in that season under Phil Brown, when they were absolutely incredible for half a season and then just lost every match afterwards? And then
Blackpool as well. Do you remember Blackpool?
Yeah, Blackpool. Yeah, that was such a shame they went down. I was a massive fan of Charlie Adam, and those are the days. Just to mention a couple more teams on this list before we move on to some player data. Newcastle in 15th over the last 4, despite having the best fixtures. So I mentioned how with this kind of more attacking approach, but not really seeing it in the numbers. Still in 15th. Even with these numbers, so that the defensive data is pretty poor, the attacking data is pretty poor. They've got an absolute horror run of fixtures coming over Christmas as well. I just can't see how he's going to keep him up. I mean, they won, didn't they, over the weekend? But can he get more wins? Can he win any of the next couple of games? I'm not too sure.
It's all about what happens in January, I suppose, for them. I mean, and I think we'll get a good signal whether they think that they can stay up as well, because they if they invest heavily, then they're really going for it. If they don't, then
I just remember QPR. I remember when QPR came up and they invested. I remember they bought Chris Samba, paid him like 120 grand a week or something, and I think they bought in a striker. They bought in loads of players in January, and they just couldn't get him to gel. It's hard to get players in. To get in good players halfway through a season is a challenge enough, and then to get them actually working and fitting in the side.
Also, they're not going to be getting the absolute best players at the top of their game either, are they? They're going to be getting the players that are sort of slightly kind of misfits within their current team. The sort of Aaron Ramsey's, that kind of those are the kind of players I've seen them.
Lingard, Ramsey, the kind of the good players, but kind of outcasts in their side. Yeah, they'll probably splash out on like a Ward Prowse or they'll probably make like kind of one sort of just above average marquee signing, Tarkowski from Burnley, someone like that, someone who improves them but isn't like a superstar player. That's probably what they're going to end up doing. And the last team I want to mention here is Spurs. So Spurs attacking wise, 3rd on the list over the last 4 after Liverpool, Man City. That's despite being 15th in the difficulty rating. XG non-pen every 45.8 minutes. Seeing huge improvements under Conte. We knew it would happen. We knew we'd start seeing them click and be better. But, you know, we really are seeing them become a better side, both offensively and defensively. And, of course, now they're hit with COVID. And we probably won't see them for a couple of game weeks. So...
Yeah, it's pretty incredible given where they were. I mean, they were pretty abysmal. You know, they were creating absolutely nothing at all. And to be in the sort of top 3 over the last few is a real turnaround. It's interesting, actually, because what I kind of suspected was that Conte was going to try and shore things up a bit, because he's not the most attacking manager. Anyway, I mean, his teams do score goals, but they tend to play on the transition. But he seems to have managed to improve things at both ends, which just demonstrates what a good manager he is.
Yep, it's what Mourinho could never really do. It's like Mourinho had these puzzle pieces. Had pretty poor defensive players, really good attacking players, but still tried to play quite defensively, and it didn't really work. Whereas I think Conte's realised that, and he's playing on the front foot a lot more and getting them to try and create more chances, and it's working quite well.
Yeah. I mean, it could be the tomato ketchup.
Absolutely, maybe that's the secret.
Yeah.
Did Capello ban that as well? What did Capello? He banned everything, didn't he, when he was England manager?
They do. I've got a friend who's got a theory that really what managers do is they just come in and they either, if the previous manager has banned tomato ketchup, then they reintroduce it and everyone gets a morale boost, and then the opposite as well. If it's available, then they ban it, and that creates a statement and supposedly improves everyone's fitness and stuff. And so 90% of football management is the condiments.
Yeah, you just don't get that on the Football Manager game. I'd love to go in and have the option to ban barbecue sauce and ketchup and see how it affects morale.
It's just not realistic, is it? But I mean, with the defence, a lot of it I think is them going to 3 at the back. It makes such a difference. And you look at what he did with the Chelsea, what him and Tuchel did with the Chelsea defences that were pretty appalling. And Conte came in with a defence that had the likes of David Luiz, in it, absolutely stinking it out, and ended up getting players like Luiz and Victor Moses and stuff into the team of the season. It makes such a difference to sort of more mediocre defenders to go 3 at the back, because they look really, really good. I see this again and again, and I don't want to slander any defenders out there who are actually good, but I feel like it just makes average defenders look like absolute world beaters going 3 at the back.
There's that quote, isn't there, which says the only was it it was what's his name? Soccer set Paul Merson. I think he said the only reason you play 3 at the back is because you don't trust your defenders or something like that. Which I think is a bit harsh when Conte's won all these championships and league titles with world class defenders. But yeah, I do wonder if that is the secret with Spurs, because I mean Sanchez, Davies, Yeah,
I mean look at Davies.
I know.
It's just absolutely new lease of life.
Absolutely smashing it. Yeah. And people like Pras in the community and Lynn, called him out quite early on, and Lynn didn't buy him. I think she's regretting now. I think she's brought him in this week, and now he's out with COVID. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame. There is one more team I want to mention on this list, and that's Watford in 5th. Watford in 5th over the last 4, but 19th on the ticker. So we're going to move over to play data in a sec. But people looking at the likes of King and Dennis, I think that's really encouraging. Watford they're just going all out to try and win matches and score more goals to opposition, because they can't defend. They're rock bottom for the defensive numbers, but looking a lot better with the attacking options they've got. So yeah, I'm a big King fan, so we're going to talk about him in a sec. Right, let's talk some player data. So player data, I've only looked at players that have played sort of more than 180 minutes in the league. Top is Firmino, who's obviously injured. Second though is Diego Jota for minutes expected goal involvement non-pen. So he's now overtaken Salah as being the kind of, the nailed-on player over the season who is expected to deliver the most points. So if you haven't got Jota, if you're really trying to sort of avoid him, and you don't want to join this Twitter bandwagon where he's 97% owned or whatever he is, I mean, you're just playing with fire. I think I've tried to make a case against him. I did a video for Scout where I said he's not going to keep banging in double-digit hauls and all that, but you just can't make a case to go that. I mean, Liverpool, the league's best attack. Firmino's still injured. His stats are better than Salah's. 8 goals, 1 assist. It's pretty good, isn't it, for 7.5, whatever it is.
It is good. I mean, I am one of those people who is playing with fire and not having.
You haven't got Jota? I didn't even notice that.
No, I haven't had him all season.
That speech is for you then, Simon. Are you? Are you going to stick with that then? You're just not going to get him?
Yeah, because we'll see. Because if Son is out, then I have got a decision to make, and that would be quite an easy change. But I think, all right. So we've all got Salah, obviously, definitely. Trent is probably another must-have for most of us, and so that makes a third position. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of tripling up. I think at the moment it's probably a really, really bad idea because say a match gets called off and you've got 3 of those players and 2 in the opposing team or something, then suddenly that's a third of your squad just gone completely. So I think that there's a kind of logic in sticking to 2 at the most from each team at the moment. And I don't know with Jota, this is part of my checklist thing, and maybe this will sort of backfire a little bit, and I'll be too dogmatic or rigid with it. But I sort of look at it and I think, how in TV series you get a guest star every now and again, and sometimes they become a permanent.
Like BlackBox.
Like me, unlike me, sometimes they become a permanent cast member, right? And sometimes they get killed off after sort of 3 or 4 episodes or something. And
where the hell are you going with this? This is a hell of an analogy.
Well, that's what I look at when I look at players like Jota and possibly even like Bernardo Silva and players like that are kind of coming in probably temporarily, and they're never going to be the absolute star. They're never going to be the must-have player. You're always going to have that question mark about whether they're going to start or not. And I think a lot of the time with that, it's just more hassle than it's worth, really.
I would completely agree with you if AFCON wasn't happening.
Well, I think when that comes around, then it's a bit of a no-brainer to bring him in, probably for Salah. But I think until then, there's an argument for looking elsewhere. Rather than say tripling up on Liverpool, maybe bringing in another Man City mid or Chelsea mid or another West Ham mid. I think there are opportunities to spread it around a bit, rather than just sort of looking at it and saying, all right, Liverpool are the best attacking team, so let's max out on Liverpool. Although that is in itself a strategy that will benefit a lot of people.
Well, Jota is frustrating. Like this was kind of one of the main reasons I made a few weeks ago for kind of not going with him, and then he scored that brace, and I thought, I'm just fighting a losing battle here. But he is you saw it in the game against Wolves. He misses chances. He gets chances, but he misses chances. He is kind of a bit of a, I don't know, he's a bit of a nightmare to own. It feels less of a nightmare when everyone's got him, but I don't think there's, if you're literally just picking between Jota, Mount, and Bernardo Silva or Gundogan, who we're going to talk about in a sec, is there a huge amount of difference in it? I'm not entirely sure there is.
No, not this season, seemingly. I think that you could have made more of an argument for Mount in previous seasons, although he's done really well.
Interesting.
Goal scoring and stuff. I think in previous seasons, you get that kind of drip of points from Mount, and that he's going to start pretty much every game. He's going to be on set pieces, whereas this season, I don't think you've got those guarantees that he is going to start every game. And so I think it's a bit weird because he's become much more explosive, but much less reliable. And
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think there are those questions, but typically I would say that Mount would be the kind of player that I would prefer over a Jota, because you're not going to have that problem of not knowing whether they're going to start or not. You're not going to have to look at when you're going to transfer them out or who you're going to transfer them out for. Part of the reason that Jota isn't a bad idea at the moment is that there just haven't been a huge amount of kind of alternatives, and he's had that benefit of Firmino being out. But I feel like, having watched it from the outside a bit, Jota this season, there was already a phase in this season where I think everyone thought he was essential, and then he wasn't, and then Firmino gets injured and suddenly he's essential again, and there's a bit more of a case for it this time because he's got a bit less competition. But I don't know. This is the problem when you have those sort of guest star players, rather than permanent cast member. And I don't know. I'm going to flog that analogy until it's perfect.
Well, I guess Jota has kind of got the opportunity now to go on and become a regular cast member, because if he carries on putting these numbers in, carries on delivering, I think even past AFCON, it's going to be almost impossible to leave him out. I mean, obviously, I know Firmino's a massive favourite, but I think Jota has got the opportunity to really cement himself in the starting lineup. Can he do it? We'll have to kind of wait and see. I don't think, although his numbers are good, I still don't think he's taking enough of his chances to. I think Firmino still brings more to the team, but if Jota's banging in 2 goals every match, like he could do with these numbers, because they are absolutely outrageous, then he might take more of a game. Gundogan is in 6th. Over the season, XGI non-pen, so expected goal involvement non-pen of 125.5. That is so much better than Bernardo Silva. I mean, Bernardo Silva, who is, you talked about him a second ago, massive flavour of the month. I mean, he's scoring seemingly every week in great form. Pep Guardiola described him as the best. Obviously a great option. But looking at expected goal involvement non-pen, he's down in 50th over the season, 222.7 minutes. A shot every 67.2 minutes. Gundogan's is half of that, so Gundogan has double the amount of shots in theory in a game. But Bernardo Silva's got 7 goals and Gundogan only has 3. So the stats indicate that Bernardo Silva's form isn't going to carry on. But where do you kind of sit on it? You haven't got him either, have you?
No, I think I haven't got Man City mid at all. I've got some pretty strong feelings actually about Man City. I don't know if you're planning to talk about in a bit more detail.
No, it's perfect time. Perfect time. Go on, well, shoot.
So this is another one. All right, that if you pick the right one, you could get really lucky, and maybe it's not just luck. You can look at things like Silva's stats versus Gundogan's and say, all right, there's a much stronger case statistically for Gundogan. But all right, I just made a note just before we came on of Man City so far this season. All right, and this has been the evolution of the must-have from Man City. Early on in the season, it was Torres.
Yep.
Right? Everyone was getting him in. Then there was a switch over to Grealish, which included me. I bought in Grealish, and I remember very clearly a lot of very good FPL managers saying, "All right, I think this is Grealish's time now."
I did from the start. Elite management that was. Yeah.
It was so painful because there were matches where they were banging 6 goals or whatever, and he just wasn't among them, and you have to really question, like, how can you be an attacking player for Man City?
His numbers are good as well. Like he's 23rd on this list over the season. A shot every 38.8 minutes, which is in good company. But yeah, just 1 goal and 2 assists for someone who was pretty much ever present for sort of 9 weeks for City. It's really poor.
Yeah. But it didn't take us long to get fed up with him, and so then it was Foden.
Yep.
And there was a big bandwagon around Foden, and somewhat justified because he did do pretty well. And then there was a bit of a shift to Gundogan. Now there's a shift to Silva. And, what's next? Is it going to be Sterling? Is it going to be Mahrez?
It could be Sterling.
At what point do we just sort of look at Man City midfielders and say, we can't figure it out, and there are more reliable options elsewhere? And we just save ourselves the headache of doing it, because I think sometimes you get these things, right? Man City are no longer a star-driven enterprise, right? They used to have star players like Aguero, and KDB, who were absolutely nailed on and completely central to everything that they did, and were almost sort of talismanic, despite the fact that they were surrounded by loads and loads of great players, which they still have. They still have loads and loads of great players, but now it's a very much a sort of system-led team. Most of these players have been there for 4 or 5 years. They can come in and out. You can swap in Mahrez and Foden and whoever, and Jesus and whatever, and the system still works pretty well. And you just never know with them. And so I think that you get these moments where, like Gundogan last season, where he was massively underpriced for what he was delivering, and when KDB was out, he was just an obvious no-brainer. But in the absence of those sort of circumstances, I think you're just looking to get really lucky by backing the right one at the right time. And I just wonder whether it's even worth it. Like, even if you said, like, say you took Mahrez, right, and said, all right, Mahrez is his own statistics were a goal every 180 minutes that he played. That's pretty good, and that would be brilliant if he played every match or most matches. But how long would it take him to get to that 180 minutes? It could be 3 or 4 games that it takes him to get that long. So suddenly you're looking at a goal every 3 or 4 games from a player who's capable of delivering more, but just he's not getting the opportunity to do it. And I think that you just end up in such a situation of frustration. Like even last season when they had these back-to-back double game weeks, I think I tripled up on Man City, and it really did not pay off.
It can do. I mean, the counterpoint is these aren't like 11, 12 million players, right? I mean, Sterling is obviously, but Gundogan's what? I mean, you could have got Bernardo Silva for 7 million, for example. And I think given the matches I watch of Man City, this isn't the same Bernardo Silva that we've seen in previous seasons. He is doing a Gundogan of last year. He's getting more into the box. He's just looking more dangerous. The interchange between him, Foden, Gundogan is causing defences loads of problems. So I mean, you're comparing a Bernardo Silva playing for like the best team. He's in the same bracket as the likes of like Rafinha or Bowen or these guys around 7-6-5, something like that. So I certainly think he's a good option. I think Gundogan is as well, and the stats indicate that he is. It's Foden for me, though. I mean, Foden, I think you're being a bit harsh with Foden because he was fantastic. He was a fantastic option, and he got injured. Torres always felt like he was a bit of a flash in the pan. Silva feels like that a little bit. I don't think Foden is this season. I think Foden's going to be hitting 180 points, 190 points quite comfortably.
I think Foden would probably be the one that I'd be most comfortable with sort of sticking my colours to, because he is attacking. He can play up front as well. He can play in pretty much anywhere certainly across the front three, but actually in midfield as well. So his game time is pretty strong when he's fit. But I don't know. I've seen a lot of the debate around Man City, and there's a lot of kind of effort to intellectualize picking one player over the other, and there always has been, I think, and you can always make that case. But what you're not, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the time what we end up doing is just comparing Man City players to each other and saying, all right, well, Gundogan is, based on underlying stats, so much better than Silva, so therefore Gundogan, should be the one that we go for. But we're not really sort of looking at it and saying, all right, should we go for Gundogan? Should we go for a Man City midfielder at all?
Yeah, you just want to invest, don't you? You always like going into that Watford game without any Man City players apart from Cancelo didn't feel right at all. Because I was like, especially after the first sort of 5 minutes, like they could hit 8 here. And then it doesn't even matter which one you own because any one of them is bound to get something. But as it transpired, if you didn't have Bernardo Silva in that game, you basically didn't get anything. 1 assist for Gundogan, 1 assist for Foden. That was the kind of a perfect example of what you're talking about. Yeah, and that's what you seem to get a lot of the time out of Man City now that they've moved beyond that sort of talisman player system. And they have got fantastic fixtures, and that is a really kind of attractive thing to look at. But I think the other side of it is, as well, is that people are going to pick their preferred Man City player, and sometimes it's going to be based on price, who they can afford to bring in as well. And so that's going to dictate things. And so the ownership is going to be so spread around that it's never going to be really, it's not going to be like not owning Salah, for example. And it's not going to be like not owning Sterling or Aguero, back in the day. The players who have the right Man City player on a given game week are going to really benefit from it. But it's not going to be one of those ones that absolutely sort of wrecks your rank because you haven't got a Man City midfielder. And so I think there's not that fear element around it. I have more of a fear of not owning Jota because of his ownership. But I don't think there's anybody in the Man City team that I would fear not owning. No, I mean, you don't necessarily have to fear them, though. I mean, I don't fear Foden. I mean, he's only 6.4% owned. But I look at Foden and think he's a perfect player to help me jump up the ranks quite quickly. Because I agree with you. I don't think there's much in it between, if you were to offer me Sterling, Gundogan, Silva, if I was going to pick one of those in like a draft game, for example, I don't know which one I'd go for first. Maybe Silva at the moment, but Gundogan, I don't know. It's kind of a bit of a coin flip. But for me, Foden is elite levels. I mean, I hope this injury, he might have picked up another injury now. Hopefully he hasn't. I think if you stuck with him, you deserve to kind of get some points from him. The only thing is the minutes. But, Pep does seem to like to rotate him. But it does feel like this, to me, this feels like this is his real breakthrough standout year for City. Playing in that false nine role where he's so comfortable. The interchange between him and Bernardo and Gundogan is just working so well. And I think he's the one for me, without a doubt.
Yeah. I don't think it should ever be dictated by, who you're afraid of owning or not owning. I just think it's one of those things that needs.
It's not getting to an EO debate.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that you could live with it. You could get away with it. I think with not owning one of them. Whereas it's very different with players like Jota, for example. But yeah, so that's kind of the thing with Man City. But also, I can't think of a really. I think you made a good case for Foden, and I tend to agree with you about that. But it is very difficult to make a case for any of them over another one that you couldn't also sort of switch around and say, well,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, I think like it's one of those teams where I think you can have one of them, you could have two of them, you could have none of them, and you could be fairly happy with your side. There's some players you just couldn't be without, but I think City is.
That's an interesting question in itself, and that's something that I've sort of looked at in the past. Of saying, all right, if you're just looking at opportunities, and Man City players, whether they start every game or not, tend to get more opportunities than most teams. Or most players, even if that player is starting 90 minutes, like Mahrez, for example, probably gets more opportunities than most teams and most players who play 90 minutes in the league. And so you've got that big pie of chances, and you can have one slice or two slices or no slices. It's an interesting sort of, I don't know, mental question really of how you approach the game, of whether you want to bet on that. But what is kind of thinking out loud a bit now, but ultimately City are not going to score 3 or 4 goals in every game. So ultimately there is a limit, even if the chances are off the scale, there is a limit to how many points will be scored, attacking points will be scored by them. And your chances of getting them both kind of increase in terms of coverage, but also decrease the more invested you get in them.
Yeah. I guess it's just nice to have. I mean, we kind of have got differentials in the Man City team, which we haven't had so much before. I mean, normally it's been De Bruyne and Aguero or someone like that, and that's kind of it, and everyone's got them anyway. But when you see players, I mean, Gundogan's like 4% owned or something, Foden's 6% owned, Bernardo Silva's up to like 20% now. So I guess the argument is, you look at a list like this, you see Bernardo Silva down in 50th, and you think, okay, he's not actually performing stats-wise that well. I either don't go for him and back one of these other players. Bowen's in 25th, Mount in 13th with expected goal involvement of every 146 minutes. Maybe there are players who can better that, who are more kind of integral to the team, and the numbers suggest they're going to be better. I guess that's the argument. Or you go for someone like Foden and think, okay, he's 6% owned, playing for Man City, and in the best attacking team. Yeah, really interesting debate. I think like I said, I think there's different ways that you can kind of go with it. We talk
Bernardo
a bit more
Silva. He feels like the kind of player that my dad would get in.
Yeah,
I think he would like my dad, because he does play FPL. He got in Milivojevic. Remember that season? Where
it's all the penalties. Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to him why, statistically there wasn't a good argument for bringing him in, and yet he had the player who scored 10 goals from midfield and cost like 4.4 million or something, and I didn't, because I tried to sort of intellectualize my way out of it. And so it just goes to show you can overthink these things, definitely.
You definitely can. And, we've seen with City in the past. We've seen players like Yaya Toure. He was right down the bottom of these stats things. But when he bursts through 6 players and smash it into the top corner week after week, you kind of got to start thinking, that you probably need to make the move. All right, let's move off City for a bit. We'll come back to them in a sec. I want to talk about United for a bit. So play data season, Ronaldo's in 9th. No player other than Ziyech is having a shot more frequently than him, every 21.8 minutes, which is exactly what we all expected to happen. So he's 9th on the list. Just there's a bit of discussion in the chat. Just so you know, this list is all players that have played over 180 minutes in the league. So it's why you've got players like Calvert-Lewin, Sterling, Firmino, Cavani, Mahrez all in there. They're just kind of good barometers because, if something happens and Mahrez suddenly gets a run in the team, or if, Firmino comes back and Jota gets injured, it's good to know that these players are there. So if they ever become options, that we can start considering them. Obviously, we're not going to consider, getting in like Pulisic now, but the numbers indicate that when Pulisic plays, his numbers are right up there. He's 7th on the list. So if he ever became an option and more nailed, he'd be someone that we look for. That's why I've gone for 180 anyway. We could up it. We could get rid of, some of these players, Mahrez, Cavani, but I think in some ways it's good to have them as a bit of a barometer for the others. Let's talk about United. So as I said, Ronaldo's in 9th. Looking up at some of their other options, I mean, people are going like Dalot deep at the moment, thinking about him. Apparently, Wan-Bissaka's having a shocker tonight. So we might see Dalot playing a bit more. Rashford's down in 64th when he plays. Sancho 74th. So disappointed in Sancho. I really thought he was going to, take the league by storm, but he's looking like another kind of Werner going on. Fernandes is not on this list. Anyway, I don't even know where he is. I think he's miles down. You think after game week 1, would you ever have thought at this stage of the season we'd be going into this fixture run for United without even considering Bruno Fernandes in our team?
Well, that's amazing. Like you mentioned early on, has there ever been a drop-off like Harry Kane? And, Fernandes is pretty close to that in this season alone. He's been, absolutely essential and completely disposable all within, 16 games?
I know.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And, last season, you're kind of surprised when he doesn't return. And this season, he gets a goal and you go, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. He does occasionally crop up. I mean, I guess he is the kind of a differential player that not many people are going to have going forward. I mean, he's a hell of a lot of money. Is there any, could you make a case for him over Ronaldo? Could you even make a case for him over someone like Rashford, who looks like he's going to be starting up front with Ronaldo going forward?
It's always going to be the price. I think that's the difficulty with Fernandes, because you could make a case on paper. You would say that him and Ronaldo are the best options. Not statistically, it seems, for Fernandes, but the fact that he's on so many set pieces, probably on penalties, things like that, he should be a really good option. He should be the safest option, in fact, the player that you would expect to play most games and to be most involved. But right now, he's, for whatever reason, he's not getting the points. You've got Ronaldo, who's going to be very popular, very heavily backed, and seems to have sort of adopted that kind of talismanic role within Man United. Is much easier for most people to get to as well, especially if they've got Kane or Vardy. And I think it's very difficult. I still think it's difficult to look beyond those two, because I think as soon as you get over sort of 8.5, 9 million with any sort of player, really, but especially midfielder, they need to have something more to their game. Something like they're playing out of position or they're on set pieces. Something that can help them kind of justify that price and deliver points even when they're not necessarily playing well. And you sometimes you get these players like Rashford and Mahrez and Sterling at City, who are just totally reliant on in-play returns, and they don't have that extra element to their game. And I think that because really so much of that is dominated at Man United by Fernandes and Ronaldo, I think it really undermines the other options. So people like Sancho, for example, is an exact example of that. Could well pop up with a goal or an assist, but there's not a lot, to rely upon if Man
Well,
United
they're not 7 million,
taking
are
those
they?
chances.
This is the thing. They're not 7
No,
million.
exactly.
They eat up into so much of your budget, and you've got to make kind of allowances elsewhere, and you're not even guaranteed of getting that kind of steady stream of points that you kind of want. I mean, Rashford has potentially got out of position appeal now. We saw him moved up front to partner Ronaldo. They're playing very close together in Ralph's first game. XG in that game of 0.00, so didn't have a chance at all to talk about. I think very few touch in the penalty area. Almost a foil. I mean, I think that's pretty much what he's going to be used as a foil for Ronaldo. Kind of feels like the whole team is almost a bit of a foil for Ronaldo, which to me is great for Ronaldo, because I think he's going to be the one tasked with getting the goals for the side. They've got the best fixtures. To me, it's overthinking to go for any of the other United players and not get Ronaldo, first of all. But also, I'll go one step further and say I think it's overthinking not to get Ronaldo for this run. Honestly, I think he's a must-have.
Well, I was quite cynical about this. I mentioned that yesterday.
You did.
I did, but a day is a very long time in fantasy football. So,
here we go, 180.
Well, since then, looking at my team, I had Vardy and Son, and what I'm looking at perhaps turning that into is Ronaldo and Bowen. And I would personally prefer for this run, I would prefer Vardy and Son. But given the fact that Son looks like he's likely to be out, Leicester might not even have a fixture.
You prefer Vardy and Son over Ronaldo and Bowen?
Yeah,
I would totally disagree with that. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, well, I'm glad, because that's likely to be where I'm going to go. But I think looking at it, I thought, okay, you've got two players that you know what you're going to get with. You're going to get points from Son, and you're pretty confident that you're going to get points from Vardy, and perhaps even more importantly, that you're going to that they're going to play. Except for if the match gets called off, which is the problem right now. Whereas I look at Man United, and there are so many sort of question marks around it. And now it looks like I'm going to get Ronaldo in because there aren't, many other options.
Yeah, it always sucks when that happens, doesn't it? Like you're getting him in because there's nothing. That's kind of why I got Kane. Like there was no forwards that were really exciting me, and I just thought, I'll just go for a bit of a punt here. But it never really felt good.
It doesn't, no, and it's a bit of a relief as well in a sense, because I look at those fixtures and I think, those are really good fixtures for Man United. It would be, it would feel uncomfortable not to have some Man United coverage going into those fixtures. But then at the same time, I really do wonder about United. I think there are a lot of question marks around the team and Rangnick, and I think the way that he's come in, and you can see that he's already started to impress his style upon them, this high pressing, high tempo style upon them. And it's very difficult to take a team in mid-season and convert them from a sort of transition team into a pressing team. Not least because, one is much more taxing physically than the other.
Well, they were knackered, weren't they, in the second half?
Yeah,
they got the goal, but the first half they were great, and then you could just tell they were blowing.
Exactly, and look at that going into this fixture run where they're playing every 3 days or whatever. People are going to get rested. Ronaldo is definitely going to get rested. He's going to miss out on some of these really good fixtures, and that was one of the things that I was a bit wary of them about. But also, I kind of wonder whether they can maintain a high enough level of performance with this kind of demanding style. It's possibly that Rangnick will adjust it before that happens. But We've seen it with Liverpool when Klopp first came in. I think he came in round about sort of mid-season. And for a couple of games, they were just absolutely terrifying to watch. It was absolutely terrifying if your team was playing against them, because they were so aggressive and so on top of it. But then they would start to fade in the last 10 minutes or whatever of a match, and certainly faded in the latter half of the season. And sorry with Chelsea as well. Like Lampard brought in that sort of style, something approximate to that style, and even though Chelsea had, were mostly playing players kind of under 25, and that it took them a while to get up to that level of fitness that you can maintain that throughout a game. And what do you do if you're that manager? You have to stick to it, because you can't sort of say, okay, we're going to play this style for half a game and then not the other half or whatever until we're fit enough to do it. You have to kind of push through it. And so, I kind of wonder if getting a team in such a period of transition is something that
I love this. This is just like Mark trying to justify Ronaldo at the start of the season. I mean,
the other side of it is that Ronaldo, you're unlikely to captain Ronaldo during this run of fixtures. You're much more likely to captain Salah, and so you've got a 12 million player that you're not captaining, and that is a question mark as well.
Could you not captain him? I mean, let me just. I mean, the fixtures. I mean, everyone's kind of aware of the fixtures going forward. This isn't the one that I'm meant to get up. Where's the fixture ticker? There it is. Just giving a sneak preview to our fixtures, because I've got it labelled wrong on Streamlabs. It's all going so well. I mean, United's fixtures are Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley. Do you not think Ronaldo is a strong captain option, A, against Norwich in 16 and B, in 19 against Newcastle? I mean, Salah has Leeds in 19. This week has Villa at home. I mean, I'm considering Ronaldo this week as captain. I'd definitely be considering him against Newcastle as well. But, Burnley in 20 at home. Even Brentford away in 17. When Newcastle's going as our captain. But like in 18, Liverpool's got Tottenham away. Ronaldo's got Brighton at home.
Well, now that it's become a kind of binary between United, between Ronaldo and Salah, then you could probably make more of a case for it. I think that historically you could probably look within those fixtures, that run of fixtures, and say, maybe Son would be somebody that you could captain. Maybe Vardy in another one. And now, really, because these players are becoming less viable, we're starting to focus in on just a couple of captaincy options. And so it's always a case. I mean, he's definitely a captaincy option over
Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley. It could not be a better 5 fixtures. And we're talking about the greatest goal scorer potentially ever, playing in a side which against Palace had all the hallmarks of a massive improvement. It covered more distance, more passes, more shots. Everything was better. They're going into this with the wind in their sails. Basically, it's not like they've still got Solskjaer and there's still a bit of doom and gloom about them. Everything's kind of looking up. And Ronaldo eats teams like this for breakfast. Like this is his bread and butter. This is where he gets his goals. He's going to be looking at these next 5 games, and he might miss one. But what player isn't going to be at risk of rotation? I mean, the City players are. You've got Vardy, for example. Vardy's not going to play all of these games over Christmas. I mean, the only player that we could feasibly say would play them would be someone like Kane, but he's rubbish. So you're not going to keep him. I mean, he's going to have about 5 games in a week coming up soon, so you probably want to captain him for that. But I don't know. Yeah. I just think when you've got a player like Ronaldo playing for a team that have got something a bit new and a bit different, and I understand what you're saying, that it's going to take time to get things working there, but the fixtures are just so good that I just want to have that talisman player from that side in my team and not have to worry each week. I mean, if you haven't got Ronaldo for these 5 games, it's going to be absolute torture. I mean, Norwich, Brentford, Newcastle and Burnley, the defences are awful.
Didn't we just say that Norwich were the 3rd best defence in the league?
Well, over the last 4, yeah. Well, they are. They have massively improved, but they have had the 2nd best fixtures. So it's going to be a real test for them when they come up against United, I think, at the weekend. Yeah, I don't know. I just think United have got to climb up the table. There's too much riding on these 5 games for them to give Ronaldo too much of a rest, and they need him to get his goals. I just think it's overthinking not to be moving for Ronaldo. I think him and Salah for this run, I think unjustifiable. You've just got to have them. It's interesting that I like the fact there's a difference in opinion though. It makes it all a bit more interesting.
Well, I think it's the absence of alternatives now that's kind of driven it. I think like we were saying, that if Spurs were, if you could rely on Spurs maybe not Leicester looking at them. I think Vardy is a captaincy shout possibly this week.
He is. He's on the captain matrix. Yeah.
But then you've got Chelsea as well. I mean, they've got a deceptively good run of fixtures. I think the next two are really good from an attacking point of view. So there were alternatives, but I would happily captain Salah in at least 4 of the next 5. And given the form comparison, I would probably be more comfortable captaining him over.
Worried about
Ronaldo.
Salah getting another 90 or however long it was in the Champions League?
Oh, that was just nuts, wasn't it? I'm still trying to figure out what the logic behind that was. I mean, I suppose you could look at it and sort of say, all right, if they got beaten, then maybe that would be something that ruins their momentum, and maybe that's what he was thinking. But I mean,
he wanted that record, first English club to win all their group games. I think there's definitely a bit of an ego with Klopp around things like that, or it's him trying to make a point. Oh, I know it happened to Jota last season, but it won't happen again. Look at me, I'm amazing. I do like Klopp, but I think he's definitely quite an arrogant guy at times. We need to move on. We need to talk about the question that everyone wants to know the answer to, and that is your thoughts on the mighty Dennis versus Josh King, which was never a debate that I thought we'd be having at this stage of the season. If you entered the player diary of the season, I was really surprised to see Dennis so incredibly low down. He's like the 3rd highest scoring player in the game. But talk about overperforming. XGI non-penalty every 277.9 minutes puts him 80th amongst all players. Josh King in 24th, 173.4, and that's not including penalties, which we're sure that he's got now. Let's look at the last 4, though. There's a very different story here. And neck and neck. 21st is Dennis over the last 4. 3 goals, 3 assists. And then King in 22nd with 202.2. So they've regressed. Both of them have regressed. Well, King has particularly regressed. Maybe Dennis has gone up a bit. But it's very close between them. They're the same price now. It's King, though, isn't it? Like, I don't really know why anyone's debating it. It's quite obviously Josh King, the one you should go for, to me. Can you make a case for Dennis?
Well, I mean, I guess you could look at the scoring record and say that Dennis hasn't done badly.
That's true.
But I think in terms of player profile, just to get out of the way, there is the question of African Cup of Nations that, and that's been brought forward now, I believe, and so you could end up losing Dennis quicker if he does get called up quicker than you might expect. So that's possibly a transfer that is waiting to happen. But I think just in terms of player profiles. Josh King is more central. He's on penalties. He's actually the type of player that I really, really like, Josh King, because he scores about as many goals as he assists, and I think that's really important in a forward, because even players with the best scoring records don't score in every match, but you can feasibly score in or assist in matches that you're not scoring. If you're that type of player. And there are a lot of players, who score well. Like Tammy Abraham was an example of this. A player who gets quite a lot of goals, but almost never assists. Whereas Josh King, it's got historically a really good balance of the two. So
he's a busy player, isn't he? He gets himself around. You saw it in pressuring the goalkeeper, and he'll get kind of opportunities off the back of that. He should have scored over the weekend. But also he's unselfish as well. Like he's happy to kind of tee other players up and set players up. And I don't know, everyone calls Dennis the menace, but I think Josh King is the menace. That doesn't rhyme, doesn't sound as good. But you know what I mean? Like he's that, and he's got the pedigree. He's had good seasons in the past, getting us points in FPL. He goes on good runs. At 5.7, we've already seen that Watford's attacking stats have been really, really good despite having really tough fixtures. And that's the only way they're going to stay up. Ranieri has said, we've got good attack, we've got an awful defence, let's just go out and score goals. And that's why they're having big scores against teams like United and Everton. And I think that's just going to carry on. And King is a central man. It's an easy. I'm bringing him in this week. I'm quite excited. Josh King.
I've got him. I've had him for 2 weeks, and I benched him both weeks, which ended up being quite a good move. But I'm quite excited to be able to starting him now. I think I'm not massively keen on having a player in your team, playing for a relegation threatened team that you're going to have to play every week because, at some point that those points are going to dry up. But looking at their fixtures, they've got a really, really good run of fixtures. The stats bear it out as well. This doesn't feel like a sort of like a meme player, something that just gets a lot of hype on FPL Twitter. He does feel like a player where there's actually a kind of logical argument for bringing him in, and really, really cheap.
Which always leads to inevitable disappointment when all the logic's there, playing for an attacking team, the fixtures are good, and then they blank for 4 games in a row. You know what's going to happen. What about Benteke though? Benteke's in 4th over the last 4, 20.6 minutes, which I think is one of the. I think only Ronaldo beats that. And someone that we're kind of constantly overlooking, but keeps cropping up near the top of these stats tables week on week. I still think he's a pretty good option.
I think he's a good option as well, but he's really pushed the level of trust over, to say the least, over about the last, almost decade of football that he's been underperforming. He does feel like a player who's just going to sort of have these moments, but I don't know. Is there enough to believe that this is a real long-term resurgence from Benteke, or even that he's going to, he's not going to end up losing his place to, one of the other strikers. Is it Edouard?
Yeah, well, Edouard's been kind of shifted over to the left, hasn't he, or out of the squad to accommodate him. I don't know. He's a funny one. He's not someone that I want, but he's someone that I keep seeing on these stats tables, thinking, it indicates he's right up there with some of the elite players. I mean, I've got to mention Neil Maupay. I mean, we were talking about at the start. I did that little teaser. Who's the top forward over the last 4? It's bloody Neil Maupay, isn't it? 100.8 XGI non-pens. That's because he's had 2 chances literally put on his foot that he's ballooned over the bar, and then he goes and scores an overhead kick. It's Neil Maupay in a nutshell. I mean, God, go for Benteke over Maupay. I'll tell you that.
I was so mad about that last minute goal because I swear that I was out. I wasn't watching any of the matches, but I was looking at the scores, and it was getting towards full time, and I'm sure that I saw that fixture, that Southampton Brighton match, go yellow on the BBC ticker and say full time. I'm sure I saw that, and then I checked again about sort of 10 minutes later, and points had disappeared. My Livramento points had disappeared, and I don't know, really annoyed.
Yeah, well, I'd Livramento coming off the bench. I'd Livramento coming off the bench, and I was very conflicted because in one I was like, oh my God, we just got a 98th minute winner. It's Neil Maupay. Oh, that means he's going to carry on playing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird moment.
There's going to be a lot of those people who were cheering on a goal against Southampton, who ended up getting Livramento off their bench.
Yeah, absolutely, because Tony misses out. It's completely for that. But yeah, I mean, the signs are that Maupay is getting into good positions and getting good chances. I think that's probably going to decrease now Trossard's out as well. I think we've got so many injuries. I mean, it looks like this game's going to get postponed against Spurs, and frankly, I think that's good for Brighton because we've got so many problems at the moment. Kane. Let's talk about Kane quickly. I mentioned him quite a few times. The key stat is 0 goals, no assists, obviously. But he's in 10th, 142.9. Son's in 20th, for example, and Son's been doing brilliantly. Kane's been unlucky. He's been unlucky not to get anything for frustrated owners like myself. But I watch him, and he is not right. His head is not in it still. Even Conte's come in. I know he's getting chances. I watched his movement around the pitch, and he's always been like not lumbering, like you know what I mean. Like he sometimes trots towards the centre circle and stuff, but he just doesn't look like he can. He still doesn't look like he can be bothered to score. I just can't understand what's going on with him.
Well, you can though, can't you? It's
still to do with that City move not going through, you think? It's still the fact he's desperate to leave, even though they've got a world-class manager in now and he's put his arm around him, said you're kind of our main man. He's still not happy.
It's very hard to sort of get in his head and look at it, but it's hard to think of anything else because it's not necessarily, the team like we saw earlier on, they are now creating chances at the level of an elite team. He is playing every minute of every match. as the sole centre forward. He is dropping deep, but we've seen him do that. We saw him do that last season, and he had one of his best seasons ever. So, what is left, really? It feels quite lazy to sort of say, oh, he's just annoyed and he's sulking. And he doesn't always look like he's sulking. He looks like he cares. I agree with you that he does tend to sort of lumber. He seems to not quite have this pace about him. But, there is. I mean, it's possible that this is a bit of a bait and switch, and maybe some of those injuries have caught up with him a bit. Maybe he's lacked, he's lacking a yard of pace, as they say. But we're all just assuming that as soon as he gets the right motivation, then he'll turn into the old Kane. Maybe that's not going to happen anymore.
It's just interesting because we've seen an upturn now in these numbers, right? He was like 70th, 80th on these stats numbers for expected goal involvement for ages. And now we're starting to see Spurs click. They're kind of one of the most attacking teams over the last few games. We're seeing Kane's numbers increase. But, I mean, he had the one-on-one. But other than that, he doesn't seem to be doing anything that's in any way justifying paying that amount of money for him. He's an absolute easy sell for me. I mean, obviously, Spurs have got COVID in this game. He's going to be postponed. Even without that, I'd sold him before that, or any of that news had broken. I just can't be dealing with it anymore. It's ridiculous. How can you have... I mean, the other player who's got 0 goals, no assists in the last 4, doing well on this list, in 7th, is Aubameyang. What the hell is going on with Aubameyang? He can't finish. He can't finish his dinner either. The chance he missed in the last game against Everton in the last minute after coming on. It's unbelievable.
What I think is really funny about Aubameyang is that he was doing brilliantly. I mean, he was absolutely smashing it, and then he got that new contract, and almost from the second that
it's the complete opposite of Kane, right? He kind of getting what he wants, and he's gone completely off it. I just can't understand it. I can't understand it. At this point, there has to be something going on between him and Arteta, which is just Arteta. I mean, the fact he was benched in that game against Everton as well. I mean,
well, it's a shame from an FPL point of view because Aubameyang would be an option. He would be an alternative to these strikers. There is just so little up front at the moment. I know we've been through, Mbappe and Benteke, but I mean, the fact that we're even talking about those sorts of players, no offence, is just, just really illustrative of the dearth of options that we have. And Kane's not doing it. Lukaku's not doing it. Even Ronaldo isn't really doing it. I mean, there's a lot of faith going into, him pulling it together in the league, going forward. I know he's scored in other formats, but he's had like 1 goal in the last 7 or something, or 2 goals, is it?
Yeah. There's only really Salah and Trent, isn't there? They're the only ones which every week you're confident of getting something out of. I mean, we did have that with James and Cancelo a few weeks ago, but now it's looking, a little bit dodgy. I'm now a bit worried about James's minutes, for example, and as though Cancelo hasn't been putting in outside of the boot worldy assists for anyone. I mean, Salah and Trent are just so far above anyone else. I just don't think anyone can get anywhere near that level of consistency.
Son could have interrupted
Son
that a
could
bit,
have done.
but that's been derailed by the looks of things.
Yeah. And the last player I want to mention on this list before we move on, because we're going to look at positions in a sec, but we've covered a lot of it, so we can do that quite quickly. Is Antonio. Antonio down in 63rd. A shot every 60 minutes. He's got 2 assists. I mean, his assist for Masuaku, I don't think you can really call that an assist. But expected goal involvement non-pen every 363.6 minutes. So we're talking every 4 games. He's getting expected goal involvement. That's awful. That's absolutely terrible. I'm really hoping that the stats I showed at the start about how good West Ham were when the fixtures were good and how bad they've been when they're bad means that he's going to start delivering again. Now they're getting good again, but he's got to start pretty quickly, I think.
It really doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Because West Ham is scoring at a rate that they don't normally score. Yeah. They are scoring well. I believe that they are creating chances. They're certainly taking chances, and you would think that Antonio would be really central to that. But I keep seeing it that they score 3 or 4 goals in a match, and Antonio somehow avoids all those points. It's like the Matrix or something.
It is.
He's swerving points like Neo swerves bullets. It's It's
He's
just
always
crazy.
there. He's always there or roundabout. Like he's kind of just on the edge of the box, or he's like assisted the assister, or he's like made a good run and fallen over his own feet. He's so close to hauling, but he's not playing badly. Not like Kane, for example, but just isn't getting the returns.
Yeah.
It's strange.
I mean, early on in the season, you could never have foreseen this as well, because he just looked so dominant
every match.
Yeah, it looked like he was going to score, 2 or 3 goals maybe, each match.
The ball would come in, he'd chest it down, take about 3 players out of the game, turn, swivel, bang into the top corner. Like, it was just expected, and now it's crazy how it all turns around.
This is what people talk about, though, when they talk about regressing to the mean. His form early on in the season was so unsustainable, was so good that at some point there was going to be this kind of counterpoint to it, this counterweight to it. But it's just been as extreme, which is not what you want from an FPL.
No, absolutely. And the people that jumped off him earlier, I think when he was red carded, I think he was he red carded, or was he something happened to him? Was he injured, or he was red carded?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was sent off, I think, against.
Yeah, people jumped off him, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, you can't sell Antonio." Those that did probably haven't got any points because all the forwards are useless. But at least you didn't get completely burnt by it.
That's the thing. If there was anyone, if there was Calvert-Lewin or Bamford or anybody available and scoring, then we wouldn't own the likes of Antonio or Vardy or Kane. Or even maybe Ronaldo, but there's just been no one. It's the weirdest circumstance, I think, when it comes to forwards ever, to not have anybody really delivering consistently.
He's still a hole for me, though. I think I think I'm just going to keep saying it till I'm like old and grey. But there's no way I'm getting rid of him. Not with the fixture turning the way they are.
Well, same. Yeah, I've got him too. So I'm not looking to get rid of him.
It's either the double up with Bowen or not. And I'm presenting all these stats. I'm just going completely against them with that. With that call. Right, let's look at some players by position. Let's look at goalkeepers first. We won't spend too long on this. I mostly just want to talk about Ramsdale. Arsenal have conceded 9 goals over the last 4 games, which is the joint most in the league. He's actually got an XG prevented of minus 0.8. He was the highest a few weeks ago. He was preventing the most kind of goals. He's top rated. That honour goes to Sarr of Wolves now, who's got 2.2. So he's prevented 2 goals effectively going in. Worst, by the way, is McCarthy, minus 3.8, and manager not happy with him with the injury, and that last minute winner against Brighton. Did you actually see what happened in that game? You said you were out. Basically, McCarthy got injured and didn't tell the bench that he was injured. And so in the last minute, Mopé just basically had a free goal to aim at because McCarthy couldn't move because he had a injury thing. So yeah, Hasenhüttl went mental. It'd be interesting to see if he comes back in, or maybe Forster goes in, or they've just bought Caballero on a free. See if he gets in. But yeah, anyway, the good news for Ramsdale owners is he's the joint most minutes per save lowest. So he's making a save every 18 minutes, which is encouraging. He's got the best minutes per baseline bonus as well. So he's one of those keepers who, although he's ticking over kind of nicely, and Arsenal have had tough games, hopefully he can kind of turn things around. It's still Ramsdale for me. He's still the one. If I was picking a goalkeeper on a wild card or anything like that, I'd still be going for Ramsdale. Anything to say on keepers?
No, just exactly the same. A lot of me turning my season around coincided with bringing in Ramsdale, because you just get those sort of 4 or 5 points every week, and it really does sort of add up over time. It really does make a difference. And the only thing that I'm surprised at is I was an early owner of Pickford, sorry, not Pickford, Schmeichel. I thought that he was going to do really well.
He's having an awful season.
Yeah, and even when Leicester weren't doing well defensively, I thought that he could still do well, but no, just absolutely terrible.
Absolutely.
I had to really eat my hat with that one because I was very bullish about Schmeichel pre-season.
He's always on this list as underperforming on XG prevented. He's letting in more goals than he should do week after week after week. He's one of the biggest. Well, I think he is the most underperforming keeper this season so far by quite a distance. Just honourable mention to Sanchez, 2 XG prevented over the last 4, which is really good for his owners. Still 4.6. Still think he's a good pick. And De Gea as well. I mean, De Gea's quite popular at the moment with people trying to tap into those United fixtures. 0.7 XG prevented, good fixtures, same price as Ramsdale. Now, I guess you could make a case for him, but I still like Aaron going forward. Defence then, top of the minutes per expected goal involvement is Reguilon, 118.6. He's miles ahead of second place, which is Trent, unsurprisingly, 195.7. Reguilon looks great when he plays, when he doesn't get injured after 20 minutes, and when Spurs haven't got an entire team full of COVID-stricken players. I think Reguilon could be one that breaks up the template.
Yeah, where the weather doesn't call off the match.
I know,
as well.
God, I know. It's been very frustrating with Spurs. But yeah, Reguilon looks great. Robertson's creeping up there. He's in third now. He's had a poor season by his standards, but looking a bit more likely to get returns. And in fourth, guess who it is? It's my favouriteest player. It's little Lamptey, 4.5. Expected goal of every 2-3-3. And when you watch him and you see him play, I mean, he's not even playing as there's no defensive duties for Lamptey anymore. He's just a winger now. He just plays right by the penalty area. It's just those minutes. If he was nailed on for 90, he'd be in my team.
Yeah, and if he didn't get injured every 2 or 3 games or something, he would be brilliant.
He's been injury free for a while now, but he's getting very well, sort of rested by Potter. They're taking really good care of him. They're taking him off at 78 minutes in a 0-0. They're bringing him on in the next game. It's a bit all over the place. I think after Christmas we might see him becoming a real option. But for now it's a bit of a wait and see. Ben Davies in fifth, 245.5 expected goal involvement. Mentioned him earlier. Absolutely smashing it. 4.4, very cheap. Might have gone up now in price. Maybe it's 4.5. The one other player I want to mention here is Alonso, right the way down in 34th, expecting goal involvement over the last 4 of 774 minutes, which is worse than Johnny Evans, for example. You expect more, don't you, from Marcus? As a Chelsea fan, what's your thoughts on Alonso? Because defensively, Chelsea have gone to pot since he's come back in the team.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Well, he might not be as nailed on as we think as well, because Sal played there tonight instead, and I mean he wasn't quite as bad as he was in midfield. So make of that what you will. But I mean you just never know with Alonso. He's such an enigma. He's probably the most enigmatic player that I think there is in the Premier League. He performs really well in the matches where you think he's going to struggle, and then the ones where you would expect him to really dominate, he really struggles. I think it's problematic. I do think he gets targeted a lot. He's not the quickest player, but it's his lack of turning, his sort of slow turning circle in a way. He can get turned quite easily, and once they figured that out, then it becomes very a real boon to the opposing team. I don't know. I think I can see why people have gone for him, but he is.
Would you bring him in?
The absolute. No, he is the absolute definition of that guest star kind of player. Even with Chilwell out, I don't know. I can't really get behind it. I feel like. He was really good at the start of the season. So to be fair to him, he was really, really good. But even now, I think that he's more of a problem than anything. I think that Tuchel is probably looking at alternatives for that position. Sal might be one. It could be Azpilicueta, could be James. They've all played there in that position at various times. Could be Malang Sarr. He's left-footed as well. I don't know if the fact that Chilwell is out, whether it's as straightforward as Chilwell being out means that Alonso is nailed on. But the one thing you expect from Alonso is these stats to be right up there, and they were at the start of the season, like you mentioned. But I mean, he's having a shot every 240 minutes, which is rubbish. A cross every 34.3. Which is kind of okay actually. Trent's is 30, for example. When Reguilon's is every 17 minutes he's putting a cross in. He's creating a chance every 80 minutes, so he's like one chance every game. Compared to Trent, 30 minutes, Lamptey 34, Robertson 33. His numbers just are poor basically for Alonso, and in the team that can't really defend. He's going to be up against Rafinha at the weekend, which won't be easy for him. And you talk about targeting. They're just going to get their best player to target Alonso, I imagine, for that game. I think he's going to give him a torrid time. Yeah. I think if you've got him, then you just have to kind of ride the waves of it.
Yeah.
You know, at
You
some
can't sell
point, it's
him.
going to get you a massive score.
Yeah.
But I also probably wouldn't rush to bring him in.
Yep. Shout out FPL Focal is in the chat. You aware of
number one in the world?
Number one in the world. Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
Number one, former world number one, and number one in the chat as well. Yeah. Congratulations, Focal, on rising the ranks, number one. Amazing.
And you've got to hold on for another 23.
Just another 23 weeks to go. Easy. Midfielders, we've covered most of these. Just a couple I want to mention here. I want to talk about Sterling. Sterling's in fifth. Expected goal involvement of 143.4. Any temptation? We know what he can do. 10.6.
He's just too expensive, isn't he? It's a shame because some of the numbers. When you look at Sterling's numbers, there's almost no player apart from maybe Salah. There's barely a player that comes close to him when you look at the last maybe 4 or 5 seasons. He's capable of being an absolutely fantastic FPL asset, but all the reasons that we discussed before as to why to mistrust Man City assets and just compounded by 2 due to his price. I don't know. I think maybe if there was a double game week or something, you'd perhaps look at him, but it's hard to make that case right now.
Absolutely. Just want to pay another shout out to Diego Jota. Minutes per big chance every 46.7 minutes, which is the best of all midfielders. I think the next best is Salah with 71.8. So he's almost getting a big chance in half as much time as Salah is.
This is great. Why are we talking about all these players and not talking about Ziyech?
Yeah. Well, we're not talking about Ziyech because we don't trust his position in the team, right? That's the only reason why I haven't mentioned him so far, because he's doing really well on these. I mean, he's 4th in the list. This 23 minutes per shot, 42.4 minutes per chance created, which is the best I think in the league at the moment. But I love Ziyech. He was when he signed last year and he got over the injuries he had. He was straight in my team, and he did well in the first game, and then Lampard left and it all kind of went tits up a bit. But I love him as a player. He's absolute class.
Yeah. I think especially recently he's been moving a bit more central and actually using his right foot as well, which is real benefit. He is at times the most left-footed player I think I've ever seen in my life, but what a left foot. So yeah, he definitely has his moments, and he's really chipping in with the goals.
Have you seen Eric Lamela?
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, there's always someone more.
When Ziyech starts doing Rabonas rather than shooting on his right foot, I think we'll know. The other player I've picked out here is Martinelli. He's playing for Arsenal. He's getting a bit of a run in the side now. Aubameyang's kind of in and out. 5.2 million mid, 26.7 minutes per shot, 217.4 minutes per expected goal involvement, which is 14th best. There's this worry about whether he plays or not, but he's a decent option, I think, if he can keep his place.
Yeah, I think that Arsenal have got the sort of similar problem to Man City. They're sort of like a kind of Matalan version of Man City in a way with their midfielders, because you've got all these options that on their day are really good, but picking the right one at the right time is a real challenge.
Yeah,
because you've got Smith Rowe and Saka and Odegaard and all these players that can all pop up with a goal. I mean, they're really blessed with good talent in that midfield position, but it doesn't help us from a FPL point of view.
No, I think Martinelli has the potential to be a real player for us. It's just, can he keep the injuries away? Can he cement his place in the side? All that kind of stuff. And he's probably a bit of a no-go for now, but yeah, someone to monitor. Moving on to forwards. Let's talk about... let's not talk about Mopé, actually. We've covered most of these. Mopé's in first. So he got every 100.8. Absolutely unbelievable. And then you've got Benteke. So they're 1 and 2. Ronaldo's in fourth, which I think bodes well given the fixtures he's got to come. And Kane in fifth as well. Just going right down to the bottom. So Antonio, statistically over the last 4, is the 22nd best forward to own. If you go by the stats, that's worse than Sargent, Richarlison, João Pedro, Pukki, Jordan Ayew, basically everyone. Worst forward, statistically, of all the players that have played more than 180 minutes over the last 4, is Hwang. That was a bandwagon that got derailed, wasn't it? Everyone was mad on Hwang.
Yeah.
Mad on Hwang, but no more, because his stats are absolutely atrocious. I mean, he's bottom, and he's bottom by a lot. Expecting goal of a non-pen of 1,412 minutes. I don't even know how that's possible. Woods is half of that. Next in 25th with 712. If you've got Hwang, just sell him, basically, is my advice.
Yeah, especially since you probably made some money off him.
Yeah,
as well.
I know. Now is definitely time to get. And Wolves' fixtures are awful as well. So yeah, definitely time to get rid. Predictions. So Mark and I obviously do battle each week with these. He will be happy to know that I've overtaken him now on everything. He's having a rotten season in lots of ways. I've got a 51% correct outcome. 76 out of 149 correct. I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. 10% correct scores. I'm happy with that as well. 15 out of 149. I know. And I've correctly predicted 40% of the clean sheets too. So I'm flying. Mark's not that far behind. 45% correct outcome. 8% correct scores. 38% clean sheets. But yeah, I'm taking that. I'm pretty chuffed. We'll fly through the fixtures because I'm aware we're heading into the 2-hour mark. I'll just pick out some of the standard ones. I'll just read these through. Brentford, Watford, we've all gone for goals. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. You've gone for 2-1 Watford. Mark's also gone for 2-1 Watford, which is interesting. Both back in a Watford win. City, Wolves, we've all gone for a City win. I've gone 1-0. You've both gone 2-0. Arsenal, we've all gone for Arsenal against Southampton. 2-0 me, 2-0 you, 2-1 Mark. Chelsea, Leeds, we've all gone for Chelsea. Come on, this is boring. Chelsea, I've gone for 2-1. I've gone for a Rafinha to get something from this game. You've gone for a 1-0. Mark's gone for a 4-0 Chelsea. I guess he's thinking about the injuries Leeds have got, but 4-0 is a bit optimistic, isn't it?
Well, it's optimistic looking now that Chelsea are going to keep a clean sheet.
Yeah, I know.
They've just conceded 3 to Zenit St. Petersburg. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Liverpool, Villa, I've gone for a 2-1. You've gone for 2-0. Mark's gone for 1-0. Oh, these really are dull. Norwich United, I've gone for 3-0 United. You've gone for 3-2. 2 goals for Norwich.
Do you know what? I wouldn't even be surprised if it was the other way around. Sometimes you just look at a fixture and you just know that it's going to be an absolute banger. This is you like Liverpool against Brentford early on in the season.
Yeah.
You can just tell from where. When it was during the day, it was kind of the last game in the evening. You can just tell sometimes that a match is going to explode. So yeah, 0-0. Guaranteed.
And you're happy to go into this without Ronaldo. There's going to be 5 goals, and it's going to be an absolute thriller.
Well, that was yesterday.
I see. You did mention. You did this prediction. You're like, actually, this is going to be a lot of goals in this game. Maybe I should get Ronaldo. We've all. I mean, Mark's backed 2-0 United as well, so we've all backed more than 2 goals in that match. The complete opposite of a thriller, I think. Brighton Spurs. I mean, well, it's probably off. I think is the latest, but I went for a 0-0.
So you're probably right there.
Yeah, I went for a 0-0. I think if Spurs didn't have all these COVID cases and it was sort of a full strength Spurs side versus our patched up lot, I'd go for a comfortable Spurs win. But if the game does go on, then it looks like Spurs will be massively under strength, and I think we just cancel each other out. You went for a 1-0, Mark went for a 1-0 Spurs. Same. Burnley, West Ham. I went for 2-1 West Ham. So did Mark. You went for a draw. 1-1. Not very positive on West Ham's fixture turn.
Yeah, I just sort of feel like West Ham, one of these teams that have a really good result against a big team, like they did against Chelsea last week, and then probably have a sort of disappointing follow-up. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. But I don't think they're going to get beaten. So.
No, you could be right. Leicester, I went for 2-1. You went for 3-1. Mark went for a 2-1 Newcastle. Mark's loving Newcastle in these predictions. Yeah. He keeps backing them. They keep letting him down. I think the only one he didn't back him on was last week when they won. I think he hasn't got his kind of his good glasses on when he comes to Newcastle. I can't see Newcastle beating Leicester. I think they're going to have to score at least 2 or 3. I think you having Vardy in this game is a great match for him. Quite jealous of that. And the last game, Palace Everton. You've both gone for 2-1 Palace. I've gone for Everton to win this. 2-1. Palace have just been a bit off lately.
Yeah, Everton are having a resurgence.
They are.
They? Well, I say that. I mean, they had a good sort of last 20 minutes, didn't they, against Arsenal? Yeah. But maybe that's what they need. Maybe that's the platform. But yeah, it's again, last game on a Sunday. You just never know, do you?
I loved I love Richarlison's picture of him with the hat trick with his fingers up the free. He's got 2 offside goals in the match ball. It's very good. The second offside was ridiculous. They still, I still don't. I think VAR has obviously got a lot better this year, and I trust it more genuinely. But when you sometimes see the lines they draw, and a player just looks completely fine, and then they just make the line squiggle a bit, and it's offside.
Well, they never pay nearly as much attention to when the player ball leaves the foot of the passing player as well.
No,
they look at minute detail as to whether he's ahead or not. The player who scores, but they don't spend anywhere near as much time looking at the other player, and that's as big a part of an offside anyway. I don't know.
No,
I could rant about that for a while.
I know. I think it has improved. That's the main thing. It's definitely better, but it's still not perfect. Right, let's talk Captain Matrix. You can see from my list here that it's pretty much the Salah versus Ronaldo debate every week from now until game week 19, I think, anyways, as the primary candidates. So this week, Salah's obviously playing Villa, Ronaldo's against Norwich. Some of the other differentials, Lukaku v Leeds, potentially. Vardy v Newcastle, I think is probably the main one. Antonio v Burnley, risky given Antonio's recent form. Bernardo v Wolves, if you want to carry on that run. Trent versus Villa, potentially. But I think Villa scoring that. I think Gerrard's going back to Anfield is, if that isn't kind of, if you can't psych the players up for that game, sort of when can he? And then the other two were the Spurs players, but they're probably not going to play. Any other players you might consider this week?
No, I think that's pretty much covered
Tough,
it. Maybe Benteke.
Yeah, or Josh King or someone like that.
Yeah.
Look at the captain's data then. So Salah's obviously the best when it comes to expected goal involvement, 93.5 compared to Ronaldo, 138.7. Vardy's at 207.7, so over the last 4. In terms of the opponents, over the season, Villa are the best. Minutes expected goal every 79.4, and then Norwich 59, and then Newcastle 57. This is when Vardy kind of comes into it. But over the last 4, like we talked about, Norwich have improved quite a lot, 117.3. Obviously the best defensive sort of fixtures they've had, but I don't know, Spurs still managed to score a couple against them. I still doubt their ability to keep a clean sheet against United, but anyway, the stats suggest they're not the best one to target. The stats suggest that Newcastle was still the team to go against. 59.5 expected goal non-pen. I think Vardy is a real contender this week, especially because he was benched in the last match. But
he's had his rest now, so he should be. Assuming that have they got a European match tomorrow, Leicester?
They have, but I'd be amazed if he's played. There was talk that they've got a load of illnesses and potential COVID cases in the Leicester camp as well.
Well, so I think the thing to be really wary of with Leicester is maybe not this fixture, but the match against Spurs. If Spurs can, have the Brighton match called off, which supposedly they've requested, then there's every reason to believe they would also get the Leicester match called
Absolutely.
off. So,
yeah. Which I guess would be better news for Vardy going to the Newcastle game, because if they know he's going to get the rest, if that game gets postponed as well, then you've got to think he's going to play the 90 almost guaranteed against Newcastle. I don't know. I would be pretty tempted by Vardy, I have to say. Speaking of which, let's talk about your team. So your team's on the screen. It's Ramsdale in goal, Reguilon, Trent, Cancelo, Ben White, Gallagher, Son, Salah, King, he's in, Antonio and Vardy. You've got Rafinha on your bench, but you've got 2 Spurs players. Have you used a transfer? Have you brought King in, or did you always have it?
No. I've had King on the bench for a couple of weeks. I've got two free transfers, which is pretty good. And probably, I suppose, the obvious thing to do is Son out for somebody. So I'm thinking about Son down to Bowen. Maybe Reguilon, not Reguilon, either Livramento or White to James, I can do. And then that leaves me just enough money to do Vardy to Ronaldo ahead of game week 17. So that's the plan. But it's a very fine line. So depending on what's going on with Spurs, I might take the option of doing Reguilon to James, because I want to get Reece James in. I think that he hasn't performed brilliantly recently through injuries or just playing badly. But I think going forward, all the reasons that we liked him before, should still apply, and given the fixtures. So I'd quite like to get him in, and I think I can go another week without having to worry too much about Ronaldo. Not to say that he won't do well against Norwich, but I think that Vardy should, do well against Newcastle as well. Yeah. So maybe that can offset it. And
absolutely. Then, I think I was going to say Ronaldo is a concern, obviously, but I think Vardy at home to Newcastle surely has to be a thing. Good point from QG123 in the chat though. If Napoli, they're playing Napoli, Leicester tomorrow, and if they lose, they're out. So we might see a stronger Leicester side. But I think Daka's been doing well in that anyway. I think he'll probably keep his place. Maybe Vardy can come on a bit later on if they need him. I'd still be surprised, I think, if Vardy started in that match. I mean, your two notable omissions are obviously James and Jota. I'm not seeing too many teams without those two players. But you've got Ben White, so you're fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jota is obviously an option, isn't he? That I could go to from Son, but as we discussed earlier on, I think that a bit wary of tripling up in these climates, and the fact that I can go to Bowen as well. I think that is a good move, this approach to it, I think, gives me a pretty decent bench going forward. I would have otherwise probably sold Rafinha because, he's got 3 of the worst fixtures imaginable in the next 4. But, given that I can actually kind of strengthen my team a bit now, using the money from Son, I think maybe this is a good thing. I can go into Christmas with quite the Christmas period, quite a varied team with fairly good strength and depth, a pretty good bench, which could be important, I suppose.
Absolutely. My team, quite different to yours, actually. I've got Ramsdale in goal, Trent, Cancelo and Reece James. Salah captain currently, Jota, Mbomo and Smith Rowe. I'm waiting to hear what's happening with him. I've already bought Ronaldo in for Kane, Antonio and Tony. And then my bench is Foster, Livramento, Rafinha and Johnson. So I had 2 free transfers. I've done Kane to Ronaldo. I'm going to be doing Tony to King tonight. King's going up, Tony's going down. So if you're debating it, I would suggest doing that tonight. And then if Smith Rowe's out, though, I'm probably going to have to take a hit because I don't really want to play Livramento. I could play Rafinha away at Chelsea, but I think I'll probably use this as an excuse to jump up to one of the City mids. Or I might even buy Mason Mount. I like Mount against Leeds at home.
Yeah, I did. He did. I think he had 90 minutes tonight. I'm not sure, but certainly played tonight. But yeah, I mean, I like Mount long term as well.
Yeah, I think like you said, Rafinha's games are tough, and I think this is just an excuse to kind of freshen things up a little bit. So I can't quite stretch to Foden, which is annoying. If he wasn't injured, he'd be the one I'd go for. But it'll probably be I could be boring and get Silver and just go with the herd. But I think I'd rather go for Mount. So that's probably what I'll do. Mark's team. Mark's got problems. He's got Guaita in goal, Cancelo, Trent, Alonso and James, Salah, Gundogan, Son, Jota, Tony, Antonio, and then Foster, Mbomo, Reguilon and Davis. So I assume Tony's going to go for him. I guess he's not in too bad. Then he's got Son to deal with. I mean, he's going to... Who does he move Son to? I guess that's the question. He has to kind of go... He could go for Rashford, potentially, if he wanted to be a bit left field, but I kind of have my doubts about that. He's already got the City mid. Does he go down to Bowen?
I think he'd probably go to Bowen.
You think he'd go Son to Bowen? And then I guess he could keep Tony and play in Bomber. I don't know. I look at his team and I think, I don't really know which way he's going to move.
It's still a really good team, isn't it? I mean, he's committed to the big at the back, absolutely. But
he has.
Even with the injuries, that's a really solid.
There's no one missing, is there? There's no one you look at and think, oh my god, he doesn't have
exactly
such and such.
Well, apart from maybe Ronaldo.
Yeah, I mean, he's got no way of moving to Ronaldo. If he does Son to Bowen, for example, I don't really see how he can then go up to Ronaldo unless he takes another hit.
Do like Son to Gallagher or something. Yeah,
it's a bit weird. I mean, he could do Son and Tony to like a 4.5 and Ronaldo potentially, but I don't think he's going to do that for a hit. Not basically bring in one player for a hit. Yeah, I'd be amazed. Focal says he thinks Mark gets Ronaldo. I'd be absolutely amazed if Mark went for Ronaldo. With this team set up, he's not set up to do it. He doesn't really like Ronaldo anyway, as we've seen, and he knows everyone's going to be moving for them, and he likes to be a bit different and move away. So I think Bowen. I think you're right. I think he does Son to Bowen this week. And
well, maybe he'll go for Rashford or somebody or Sancho or somebody to sort of offset that absence of Ronaldo, even if it's just to sort of mentally offset it. But I don't know. Not sure I would do that. But
I don't think he really knows what he's doing at the moment. So yeah, we'll see. Black Box League. Yeah, if you haven't joined already, the code is VJNG38. FPL Focal joined, so you've got a pretty big target if you want to win this league. Now he's obviously winning the Black Box League because he's number 1 in the world. But Rowan Murray isn't too far off him. 109.5. He's only 13 points behind him. Had a good week, Rowan. And then you've got Panagios, Steve Seedman, Harry Jones, my old mate Tabs, who I did a video for Scout with, is down in 6th. Greg, Richard Torge, and Ross Logerwood are the top 10 in the league. So yeah, well done everyone. There was someone I was going to shout out to. He was top 10. I forgot to mention him on the last pod, but I forgot. I'm so sorry. Maybe I can hang on. I said I'd give him a shout out. Let me see if I can find his handle quick. I know we've been going for 2 hours, but his name is On the Up. Yeah, On the Up. At Seafields View. He was in the top 10. I forgot to mention him, so I have done my bit.
Good, right?
Yeah, thank you. And in terms of the Apprentice League, Natalie briefly overtook Mark for 1 week, but we didn't get to talk about it because we had another game week to follow, and then Mark overtook her again so now he's like 20 points clear, which is really upsetting. So they're, it's still still battling out between them both, but I'd love for Natalie to be ahead of him and for me to talk about it on this stream. It'd be great. Henry's down in 4th. He's really slipping behind Natalie, but he did have quite a good week last week, 53 points. We've talked about the ticker, but here it is again. United atop, great next 5. West Ham are on there as well. Burnley, Arsenal, Norwich, Southampton, Watford, great run. City, great run for them. Wolves, Leeds, Newcastle, Leicester, Brentford. You've got to think maximum points for them going forward. And then right down the bottom, you've got Leeds, like you mentioned, Chelsea, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, awful run. Newcastle, Leicester, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, Everton, really tough. And Wolves as well. They've turned Man City, Brighton, Chelsea, Watford, a good fixture obviously, but then Arsenal. So they're the ones you want to kind of be dropping, and you want to be investing, I think, in United, West Ham, and see if the fixtures are anything to go by. Final plug for the FPL challenge, as I do every week. This is Mark and I donate a £5 for every green arrow that we get each week, and that money goes to feed starving people around the world. If you want to get involved, go on to sharethemeal.org, search for the FPL challenge. You can donate as little as 65p, and you'll be helping a great cause. And this is done by FPL Greece, so shout out to him for arranging this. Fed lots of people getting involved and fed quite a lot of people already. So what a nice, noble thing to do. I think that's pretty much it. If you haven't liked this video already and you've been here all the way, please make sure you do that. Subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow Simon at March Simon if you want to hear more from the former world number 1. But Simon, thanks for joining me. It's been great.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Well, welcome. Are you in any way more convinced to bring in Ronaldo? Do you reckon you're going to do it?
Oh, I'm almost certain that I'm going to do it, but probably not this game week. So,
okay. Yeah, you can't really, can you? Because you'd probably have to lose Vardy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think you can do that. Interesting. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. And the next Black Box, I don't think there's going to be one next week because it's another midweek carnage thing. And then the week after, Mark will be done with work. He's off on his Christmas holidays, so he will almost certainly be back. So all the people that are shouting every week, "Where's Mark? Where's Mark? Where's Mark?" I think by the next Black Box, he should be back in the driving seat alongside me. So it'd be nice to have him back. But Simon, you've been a great replacement for him on this episode, and hopefully we'll have you back on soon.